Hey, what's going on? We are in the building. In the building, it's the Bird of Paradise podcast, Pink Hollywood Studios within the Retro Room. We got a very special guest today. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Well, my name is David Benson, and I am a singer-songwriter, solo acoustic performer based in San Francisco, and I go by the name Said Sara. It's like that's the name of my one-person band. Also do a lot of other musical things,
Mm-hmm.
but Said Sara is my major focus right now.
Okay. I got a lot of questions with that.
Oh,
So
great.
first, we're gonna get to what part of the city?
I am in the Portola district and I
Okay.
work in the Mission district.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, we had a little conversation off air. He was asking me where I went to school and stuff, and for the people that know my people are from the Fillmore district, but I did some of my high school in the Mission district, right off 24th and Mission.
Yep.
When downtown high was there.
Okay. Oh, I didn't remember that it was in that part of town because they're on Potrero Hill right now.
Yeah, they moved, but back then they were right off of 24th and Mission.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's when I went some years ago, right off 24th and Mission, lunchtime, right on the strip in Mission on 24th.
Yep. I mean, you can't beat it in terms of the food, right?
No, I had fun. I didn't run into any issues. I was hanging out, with the locals of that area, and
Yeah.
I kind of had the energy where I can go wherever and hang and fit in. So they had their stuff going on, and I just was around poking around on my lunch break.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, I love that part of town for sure.
yeah, most definitely.
Always have.
So the Mission, yeah, I love the Mission. So, and this is for out of my own curiosity, how is it having a one man band? Because I've been looking at some of that stuff myself as far as having a one man band. Can you break that down to me personally?
I mean, I can try. I mean, my recordings, like if you stream my songs, there's going to be stuff happening that I'm not capable of doing live alone. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Some of my stuff has, drums and bass and harmonica and banjo and some electronics but live, it's just me singing and an acoustic guitar. And I've always been drawn to um, musicians who can accompany themselves on vocal and really strip it down like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of the stuff that like Lindsey Buckingham from Fleetwood Mac does alone. And then, of course, classic, folk singers like Bob Dylan who would just, accompany themselves. I mean, to me, the concept of being able to sing along to what your hands are playing, as
Mm.
simple as that sounds, it's such a, a core element of music for
Yeah,
me.
that doesn't sound simple to me. I mean, anybody I think who know that sounds very difficult.
I mean, it is. It takes a lot of practice, and I am blown away by folks who do it on piano because piano is not my thing. I come up with some very very simple lines that enhance my songs, but I can't sit down and get all 10 fingers into a piano. And folks who like Andrew McMahon or of
Hmm.
course classics like Elton John and Billy Joel who can just sit down and play, pretty technical, pretty full sounding piano and sing along. That just blows my mind. I think guitar, it's almost a way of laying a foundation for your voice.
Mm.
So, I love that kind of music, and for now, that's all I'm doing live. It's very stripped down. It gets a little tricky because it's difficult to find artists, in my experience. I wish somebody would prove me wrong, but it's difficult to find artists who just perform playing guitar and doing vocals. So if you want to put a bill together at a club, or if I'm invited to play on a bill at a club, I'm almost always playing with bands,
Mm-hmm.
which, like there's a band after me and then another band after them, or occasionally a band and then me by myself and then another band. And, part of that kind of breaks up the evening in sort of a strange way. You know what I mean? It's all kind of like it gets real quiet for a while and then it
Yeah.
gets loud again. And that's a little tricky for me, but hopefully I can bring something and, make it entertaining even on that kind of a bill.
No, most definitely. I've looked up and done my research, because my background is as a hip hop artist. I'm a unique hip hop artist in a
I
sense,
know.
but
Yeah.
you know, uh, I've been looking at, doing more funk and electronic music, and I've been doing this and doing this. So I've looked into people who have one man bands. I mean, from Reddit to here and there, because I'm not really familiar. And essentially, what I've been doing is, a one man band because I've been doing a lot of it myself. But I think one of the hardest things about having a band is getting all the people together in
Oh man.
unison.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, I mean, I'm not perfect, but I don't have the patience when it's time. I might not be all the way. I'm not perfect, but I mean, I'm gonna get the shit done. And I think keeping up with band members is just like, to me, like I would almost have to. So I've been looking at it like, hey, you know, because in hip hop, I feel like essentially you're a one man band. Sometimes you're making the beat,
Yeah.
you're doing this, you're doing that, then you're grabbing a microphone, you're not playing a live instrument. And I've been doing this funk electronic thing, and I mean, essentially, I've made it kind of similar to hip hop, but it's like in a different genre. So the beats are going to be pre-made. There's stuff a band could play, but keeping up with band members, man.
Oh, I'm with you. And I've always played in bands. I've played in bands, since I'm gonna age myself here, but I've played in bands since the 80s when I was a teenager. And
Mm-hmm.
um and I currently play in at least two bands. And yeah, when bands are a democracy, which most of the bands I've been in, now I've been in a couple of bands that were, had a dictator as well, but
Yeah.
um it's real difficult to agree on things. And then kind of like what you're saying, I mean, it is very difficult to schedule and to organize. It was easier as teenagers in high school, obviously, but I mean,
Yeah.
as adults, where everybody's got a career and some folks have children and that kind of thing, it is very difficult for me personally, to feel like I've rehearsed enough,
Yeah.
because it's so hard to get together. And when you do, it's like it's all got to happen right now. You've got to perfect this in this short amount of time. So playing solo acoustic, yes, I make all the decisions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Everything I do, the look of it, the songs I play, I don't have to consult with anybody on anything. And that's refreshing, but it's also frightening to put yourself out there as an individual and not have anybody to lean on.
Yeah.
So it's all a trade-off, right? But I enjoy both settings. But being a solo artist and having the power to do exactly what you want and not have to compromise with folks has some real benefits.
Yeah. I never, it really never dawned on me because I was always, a hip hop artist, but I just kept like evolving as an artist and going and going, and I'm start branching out. Like, okay, now we're relying more on the synthesizer and doing this and doing that, and I'm like, this isn't really hip hop anymore. And it's like, okay, they're like, Fred, you need a band. And I'm like, yeah, I do need a band, but it's like getting people together now as things, go to a certain level and progress, and you could put people on, a salary or this, and that, and however it goes might be a little bit different. But when you're just formulating new ideas, because I'm used to being, I do have a group with, Team Conquest out of the Bay, but for the most part, I make songs and do it myself. And, and so this is like a whole new thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you can assemble a band of excellent musicians who do what you tell them to do, I mean, I think that's a great situation. You know what I mean? Obviously, everybody's going to bring something individualistic and something within their own style to it. But I mean, it is very difficult to work as a voting democracy within a band.
Yeah, I think it's hard to get people to work together, in general. I feel like in this day and age to do anything. And I think nowadays with the technology we have and what people are able to do, I think even from any genre, they're like, hey, I don't need anybody. Whereas, back in the day, from any genre, it was more of a thing. Like if you notice nowadays, there's not many groups with almost anything. They're like from rap. Remember back in the day, they used to have groups of rap groups and this. And
Yeah.
like nowadays, there's not a lot of groups.
Yeah, I guess there really aren't. Yeah,
If you
when
think
when
about
you
it,
think
there's
about it,
like
right?
there's not, there used to be boy bands and rock groups and rap groups and this group. Like there's not even a lot of groups with anything. It's just, there used to be like, hey, there's the group, and then the main guy out of the group had a solo career, but there was like there's none of that anymore. It's like every man for himself.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. I mean, in hip hop, there are way more solo artists than groups these days. Whereas when you go back to the 80s, I mean, there were still a lot of solo artists, but there were more groups, right? There
Yeah.
for sure, more duos and more groups.
And I think that's just because, like, and I was having a conversation with somebody not long ago. I think it's just like an ego thing, or we're just going into a society, I feel like, where we're like, hey, I don't need, I got this computer, I got this, I got that. Like, you're like, I don't need people as much, anymore.
Yeah, it people are definitely, a lot of music is being created in a bedroom these days, right? And so like when I talk to people, because the music industry is oversaturated, right? I mean, it is very hard to sift through everything.
Yeah.
And I just, I feel like playing live is is the way to really establish yourself as somebody to watch, right?
Yeah.
Because I think there are a lot of artists releasing music who don't play live.
Yeah.
Yeah, so making songs in your bedroom, I mean, I love that. And the songs that I've recorded, I record at home. I have them mastered professionally, but for the most part,
Hmm.
they're recorded at home and in my rehearsal studio.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been playing live since I was a kid, and I feel like everything changes when you're out in front of people. You can never have the same experience with music, listening to music, as you can seeing music, right?
Yeah.
So,
I agree with that. I have this talk often. I think, with everything being so saturated, you just got to have your fan base. I think some people can specialize in live performances, but in this day and age, we have this new thing where it's content. What content, if you can make X amount of good content, you could also, it's kind of like a live performance. Also, you could kind of reach out to people and do that. Like, you know, we've never been in this like era where we have this technology and stuff like that. But I mean, I really don't have no one size fits all for how the music industry is going. You know, some people are making a lot of money touring and doing live shows. Other people are making different types of content to go with their music, and they're, you know, having a successful career. But, you know, that's how I see it now. Even though it is saturated, if you have the people that, you know, are support you, you can make it. You know, you don't have to be, you know, the Rolling Stones to be have a successful career, I feel.
Yeah. Well, it and how you define success is so important too, right? So,
Yes.
you know, how do you how do you gauge success in this current era? I mean, that's been tricky for me with this solo act, this solo project, because, you know, I've lived in different eras of music, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I was in a band in 1991, 92, 93, 94, in the pre-internet era, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, success meant um, selling records and getting better and better known when you played shows, particularly when you played shows outside of your hometown or your home area, right? So now, you know, as much as I'm not about it at my core, I'm having to look at Spotify streams, and I'm having to look at playlisting and stuff like that, you know?
So
And I
go.
know there are a lot of people who are listening to me in, you know, in that format, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
via that format, who would never have heard me otherwise. And so reaching them in that way is very important. But it's like I catch myself counting the streams on my latest single, and it's a different world, you
It
know.
it it'll defeat a lot of people. Um, and I have this talk all the time. I have this conversation. You know, my podcast is to talk about anything, but I'll often have this talk with artists, and it's very important for people to understand going forward, because I feel like sometimes a lot of artists just get into it, aren't thinking, they just love music and they're not thinking about money. But I think I personally don't really like streams. I love them and I hate them. I love streams because it can give somebody the opportunity, which I've had over my career, to listen to me wherever at in the world. They can
Right.
listen to me, find me, look me up or whatever. Now, when it comes to making money and getting compensated for what I'm doing, personally, as a smaller artist, I don't like it at all, because it's highway robbery. Um,
It is.
Doing shows is very cool. Like you said something, you know, when you're looking at like 95 and you're going to perform and do these shows, people learned about you. But this is another side that I've seen. I've seen a lot of artists in my time spend buku bucks going along with this tour, going to this city, going here, going there, doing all these shows, and that's cool, but they're still kind of here. But with this tool that we have, the internet, you know, say you spent 10 grand in a year, you know, doing all these shows and going here and there, what could you put together with 10 grand as far as your presence on the internet?
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. It's like, yeah, if you're going to spend that kind of money, I think some artists do get drawn into. I mean, it's like it ain't a money maker for the first few years, right? No matter
Yeah.
what, unless something magical happens and your song gets on a TV show or something like that. I don't know, but I mean, that's what I'm going for. I'm
Yeah.
trying to get my song in a movie, you know, or on a TV show, not to get paid, but for the for the exposure. But yeah, I mean, it is costly for sure. It's costly at
And
this stage.
so that's how I'm looking at it now. Don't get me wrong. If you have a show with Bruno Mars and Thundercat and some of these artists, and you're able to go to the show and have a person with a camera follow you, and you're backstage and you're that, but we're still talking about content now. If you're just performing, and it's all depends on how you do it. Now, if you're just performing at wherever, and yeah, it's just about what route you take, and everybody has a different formula, for how they do it. One of the things that I've been looking at, and we've kind of always done this, but a direct to consumer approach when doing music. So I'm going to take my products or whatever I have, and I'm going to get it directly to the consumer versus streaming, because
Yeah.
streaming is like, we used to sell CDs and stuff. And I had this conversation before. We used to sell CDs and go make $50 to $200, $250 off selling CDs on the street. Now, when you're an artist and you can go make a product and go make a couple $100 off the product, you're making money with your music.
Yeah, it's tricky. So the said Sara has never had a physical release. So that in itself is a sign of the times, right?
Yeah.
Because in bands I've been in the 90s, and a band that I'm currently in that does, wax CDs and cassettes with every release, that's a quick money generator, right? Selling units at shows. But yeah, I mean, I've thought about compiling my singles onto an album, and having a physical release. But I mean, unless you have a label that's investing in you, the money up front is pretty ridiculous,
No,
for something you may never make back. But I got merch, I got shirts and stuff, but
I feel like if you're able to, say you go buy 1,000 CDs, if you're able to make the money back on your CDs, you're winning. But this is my approach. Somebody could listen to Flamingo Fred in Buffalo, New York. They never seen my face. They never seen this. They're looking at my streaming numbers. They're looking at everything now is looking at streaming numbers, and they're looking at this, and they're like, okay, colorful guy, whatever. Versus me physically going to someone and saying, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Flamingo Fred. It's just like me and you emailing back and forth. Yeah, we can email and talk and chat or whatever, but when we sit here on this podcast and you talk to me, you're going to form an idea about who I am, whether you like me or not. And hopefully you like me. If you like me, this is a whole different experience versus us emailing.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's similar to what I'm saying about playing live. Is
Yeah, I
when
agree.
you're in the room with somebody, it's often a more meaningful experience, right?
Most definitely.
Than even somebody discovering your music and really liking it. Now, of course, we all need that, and that is
Yeah.
extremely important. But I've always found that being in the live setting gives me a feeling afterwards that I've really reached people, no matter how few it is. Whereas the streaming thing, I can see, my new single is this is by no means gigantic amount of streams. It's been out for 7 weeks and it's got 10,000 streams, and that's not that many. But so there must be people out there listening to it, and I can see the I look at all the stats and everything, and I can see that some people are playing it 4 times or whatever,
Yeah.
which is good stuff. And, all of that's meaningful. But yeah, I mean, in many ways, I feel like I'm in a bubble and I'm not able to physically reach people.
Yeah, and it's, we're busy, we have the schedule, a lot of people are indoors, and it is a powerful tool to have the internet and be able to reach people and have content and stuff like that. But the reason why I think I end up having this conversation a lot on my podcast or whatever, because I do care about the artists. I am an artist. I'm not a record label or anything, I'm an artist. But you know I have to tell these artists, because I know how it feels. There's times where you're like, am I going to keep making music? Am I going to keep doing, like, you go through all these different things about being an artist. And I have to have a pep talk with myself and talk to other people like, hey, you don't need 10 million fans. You need 10,000 fans that will spend $100 with you every year.
Yeah.
That's all
Oh
you
yeah.
need.
Yeah.
10,000 fans. Do the math. You need 10,000 fans that will spend $100 with you every year. Why don't I think that's a doable goal? Why not aim for that goal? Come up with a package now. When you have this merch package, for every $100 they spend, you might have had to pay $50 in product. You know what I mean? But you made a $50 profit off of 10,000 people. Do the math.
Yeah. I mean, what you're describing would give me a very positive feeling. It sounds lofty for me, but like that is I'm definitely not there with this particular project. I've been in other projects that have been in other bands that have been more successful, but um, and another thing is I'm I just don't know how capable I am of reaching people a lot younger than me
Yeah.
because I come from a different era and because of my age. So a
I
lot
feel
of what's happening is happening with, Gen Zers and millennials, and I've been trying in little ways to reach them, but
But
it's tricky.
flip side to that, I feel like there are right ways to reach whoever with content. But going back to what I said, and this doesn't mean that my way is the proven way. I mean, do what anybody out there, do what you feel is best. But my way with those 10,000 people, you can reach 10,000 people that completely identify with you. We're not talking about 10 million. It's like playing basketball. I played a lot of basketball. It's like making it to the NBA. Then being a start, like making it to the NBA is like, now, of course, there are going to be people that you might go play in Italy. Now, there might be a ton of people that discredit you for playing in Italy. But to me, playing in Italy might be beautiful women and great food, and playing in Italy and you're making 250,000 a year. I mean, it just depends on what you call success. To me, that sounds it sounds great.
Oh yeah.
Italy.
No, that's success. Yeah. So what I meant was, how do you measure it? And I am personally feeling successes in my musical life for sure. It ain't a bunch of money, and it's not a million streams, but every release at least multiplies its reach by 100. So that in itself is successful. And I've only been playing live with this since March of 2023. So it's only been, a year and a half that I've been doing it live. And
Most
as I keep saying, I mean, that's where reach and success that you can really feel, that's where I get it from anyway. I mean, it
most
just seems like the streaming is out there in another world.
Most definitely. Like, I was having a debate about, I enjoy movies, short films. I feel like I'm a funny guy. I make content, do different stuff. I do a little bit of everything. When I start doing a little bit of everything, my brand was growing. I don't look at it as just artists, but a brand. But, you know, we were looking at the numbers on social media and different sites. Like, we're doing thousands of views, thousands and thousands of views. It might not be millions, but we're doing thousands of views. And he got a check for doing a good amount of views. You know, he's got a check. And I mean, it was peanuts. And so what
Right.
that told me was it's not necessarily, you got to be sure of what you want to put out there to the world, because yeah, I can do all kinds of tricks to run my views up. I could give the people what they want and make a damn fool of myself and do all kinds of things to run my views up, but will it matter? I want to be known, and even if it's 10,000 people, I want to be known for, hey, okay, he does this and he does that, and that's what I'm known for. I know how to run views up, you know.
Can you tell me how?
Well, I've seen a different thing. It's like I've seen a lots of different things. I mean, people like sex and drama and all the, you know, all those different things. And I mean, you could do it, but
I get what you're saying now. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I could make it, do all those things, but it's all about your vibration and what aligns with you and what are your goals. So, like I said, this is not me preaching to anybody. Anybody do it the way that you feel. I'm just saying, for me as an artist, this would help me look at things. And of course, we want to shoot for the stars, but this made me look at things at a realistic way. And I'm like, hey, I feel like I can reach 10,000 people. I feel like 10,000 people can support me and I'll be happy. But honestly, I'm personally not looking to make my biggest money off of music. A lot of the people that have made music haven't. They've made money off their brand, off of them. But when you look at things in the grand scheme of things, these music checks, yeah, it might seem like $1 million, but you know how much work that $1 million was to get there? Like, these checks ain't, compared to other things. When okay, they went platinum 2 times, but that check was for 300K. Like, when you look at that, that's nothing.
Yeah.
I know people that don't do music that are making more money.
Oh yeah. I mean, as much as I have wanted to at every stage of my life, I've never made a living with it. The best I've ever done is to be able to fully finance a tour, and not go broke, to break even on a short tour. And we're talking about how you measure successes. That's a success to me, right? Because you get out there and it doesn't cost a lot out of pocket. Break even or a little bit better. But as far as the recording industry is concerned, I have never, as many sort of medium-sized successes as I've had in various projects and various bands. I've never, I've always worked a day job, and luckily I love that day job. But
And
yeah,
if you could do the math, I wonder, you could sit up here, how many people have never made $100 with their music, or this much money? I would say a huge number of people have never made any significant money with their music. And so I'm not telling people this to get down on themselves. If you find a way where you're able to use it as a part-time job, hey cat, that's a pretty cat. If you
yeah,
if you're
he
able
is.
to use music as like it's like a part-time job, if you're able to pay your bills with music, you're winning. And some people might not
Absolutely.
look at it at that. Some people might think they need to be on tour with Drake or somebody, but if you could do those things, that's realistic for majority of the artists, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Cuz
that's a win. That's a win. If you're able
totally.
to make a decent living with it, particularly in the modern era, I think that is just a huge win. So I have friends who are in pretty successful bands, within a pretty small subgenre. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about death metal, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I played drums in a death metal band, and some of the bands that we're friends with who are, I mean, very successful, getting on big tours now within this subgenre of death metal, right? But getting on big tours and like that. And I think that, we don't talk so much about, personal finances and things like that. But I think that the absolute best that these folks are doing is living a modest lifestyle and not going completely broke. And they're touring, they're playing 200 gigs a year, you know? So again, how do you measure success? Well, that's successful. Everybody who's into death metal knows their band. Everybody, right?
Yeah.
So that's a huge success. But nobody's getting rich, in
To
that type of off mainstream genre. But I mean, if you're playing that many shows a year and you love playing shows and somebody is paying you to play a show, even if it's only paying the band 3, 4, 5 grand for a gig,
mm-hmm.
uh, you know, and then you come home and you're still living in your 1 bedroom apartment, or whatever in Oakland or whatever. I mean, it's like,
You,
yeah,
you you know, it's when I first started getting on wax, because of course we start writing and doing stuff beforehand. When I first started getting on wax with my brother Verseborn, I thought I was gonna make a couple songs, and before you know it, I was gonna be, wealthy and all around the world. But as I grew, I understand, okay, being an artist, I also have to be a businessman. And some people are able to do that and some aren't. And for me, I've experienced a lot of growth being a businessman and going to a brand where I'm not just making music, I make content and I've been in short films and I'm doing a podcast, you know what I mean? Talking to different people and different artists. I have actually, well, I'm not going to make that announcement yet, but I have a well-known person who's a comedian from the Bay Area coming on next month. And I had, different people on the show. So to me, that's successful and,
absolutely.
waiting for some of my investments to pay off. But to me, that's successful. I mean, I don't need, $50 million a year. I have a large financial goal, which is larger than most, but it's not going to just off of me being an artist. It's off of me working hard, working all around and also investing and doing stuff like that and being a brand, So I think artists, if you're getting started or wherever you're at, you need to look at it like that. We're beyond just selling t-shirts and CDs. What else can you do and be a brand to expand? And as saturated as it is now, there's room for you to do anything.
Yeah.
Like I had a buddy of mine. He was really into the stock market, but he went to jail often. He in and out of jail. That's his life or whatever. So I told him before we had talked about it, I'm like, why don't you act like you're doing the stock market from a jail cell? I think you probably get millions of people watching you. You have stock tips like you're in jail. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's a
you've
great
seen
idea.
those people making those videos where they're making pizza in jail out of ramen noodle. It's about how can you package yourself and not get too far away from what you're doing, but still, essentially, he's still pushing the stock market. He has a different way of doing it, but essentially, when you break it down, he's doing the stock market, and it's a win. How can you still push yourself as an artist, but you get what I'm saying? Do this,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So I'm a, you know, I'm a big supporter and of everything and the artists and doing that stuff. What made you get into music initially? Like what made you do it? I mean, you said the 80s, which I'm a huge fan of the 80s. What made you get into music?
Man, it was a long time ago. I mean, I think that uh oh man, it's tricky because it goes so far back into my childhood. But I mean, to a small extent, I think that it's something in the blood. It's something you're born with, and then when that is enhanced by the music that's heard as a child in the home. I mean, every artist tells you, oh, it was my parents' record collection or whatever, them playing uh Fleetwood Mac, Jim Croce, and whatever, and Hank Williams. I mean, a wide sort of a wide range of genres. I think that was a big part of it. And then the disco era, it's like people from my era don't like, some don't like to admit it, but I mean, it had a huge effect on me, the music of the late 70s, the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, I mean, stuff like that. um so like when Star Wars came out, and so did Saturday Night Fever at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
basically, I was obsessed with both. And this is as a young kid, before I was 10 years old. So, by the time I was in middle school, I was forming bands with friends and
Yeah.
trying to play music in a garage. I mean, definitely by the time I was 13. So, I played my first show at a famous club in San Francisco called the Mabuhay Gardens
Mm-hmm.
when I was 14. So, um, it was just, I was willing to get out there. I guess I thought I was good. Looking back, I was terrible. But I mean, you know, but then yeah, by the time I was my sophomore junior year of high school, I was gigging regularly. So I always had the desire to recreate the sounds that I heard, not the specific sounds, but to recreate music that gave me that feeling that nothing else gave me. So, and with Said Sarah, a lot of it is rehashing that. So I played in bands, and the music is heavy, and the music is technical, and the music gives you a visceral sort of energetic feeling. But in many ways, Said Sarah is basically trying to relive my early 20s. And a lot of the songs that I do, I wrote in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always kind of chasing it backwards in a strange way. But as far as getting into it originally, I mean, I have to go back to the classic, which is the records my parents played when I was a kid.
Most definitely, and it's just it's a vibe you feel, and it's just like as we evolve, and as artists, there's some people, like even with basketball, I use this as a reference. There's some people that play basketball, they want to get a check. And then there's other people that play basketball because they have like a vendetta and they want to play basketball and they just need to play because they love it. A lot of people start out making music because they think they're going to be touring worldwide and have a bunch of groupies and whatever else. And then there's people that genuinely love to create things and want to create a vibe and have this energy within them, and that's what they need to do. And I think there's all levels of it, and to do it, I love, you know really, I had to think about myself with music. Like, I was rapping and doing stuff for years, but I looked at the different eras of music that I liked. Like, I like the music that was fun and people could dance to, the early 90s hip hop that was fun, the 70s funk era, and disco, and electronic, where people, like, that's what I enjoy, where you literally had to go all week you knew on Saturday night you were going out. So all week you're shopping, getting your wild outfit together. You get your outfit together and you show up on Saturday night and you do your thing and leave an impression, with your peers. You have fun, you do this, you do that, you have fun dancing, you meet people, you meet women, you meet men. And that's what music was about. It wasn't just about, just being cool and rapping. I mean, you're going to be cool, but that's what I liked about music. So that's what helped me, like, okay, let me start going this other way because I was already going that way. Let me do this. I want to have fun. And that's what I want to get back to, because that was kind of my era is kind of after that.
Yeah. No, it's similar to, yeah, it is being in the scene, being out there, seeing, the same people, but also meeting new people. In the 90s, early to mid 90s, I was at 924 Gilman Street in Berkeley all the time, which is a, world famous DIY venue. You can't really, I mean, you could call it a club, but there's no alcohol served there. They have real strict rules around alcohol and drugs and violence and that kind of thing. It's more like a clubhouse, that bands play. But yeah, I mean, being a part of that scene when I was in my early 20s, I would look forward to being there all week long,
Yeah.
and who I was going to see. And the bands that were playing were a combination of local bands and bands from out of town. And there were these big bills. You would have 5, 6, 7 bands a night. So you
Yeah.
always were seeing somebody you wanted to see and seeing somebody you'd never heard of. And the crowds just grew and grew. And yeah, I mean, it was like, it's going back to that same thing about getting out there and playing live, in that era before streaming, when you had to go home to listen to the record, right?
Yeah.
Or you could play the tape in your car or whatever. It was like there was so much more of a need to be in the room when the music is being played live, and so I still get off on that.
Most definitely. And me, even if I'm gonna go live or however I do it, it's about creating the vibe. This is what I watched up before my time. You had the jazz era, like, back when we could say the 60s jazz, the band used to get together and they were, hanging out at somebody's rooftop and playing music and vibing. And then you had the 70s with rock and funk and this and that, and they were wearing wild outfits and this, and 80s even with the electronic music they were breakdown. And so these are the energies it was about. It wasn't just about one person and how they aren't friends with anybody and they're so cool and they're doing their own thing and they don't need any, like, I got tired of that. There's that energy.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it'll make you look at things differently. So when is your next gig, and where can the people find you?
So I'm playing down in San Jose
Yes.
on the 28th. So that's a week from tonight. So Wednesday night, the 28th. I haven't played in San Jose with this project, so I'm looking forward to that. And it's a great bill. The headliner is an artist named Serpentant from Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I heard that she was going to be playing, coming through the Bay on this tour, I happened to know the right person to get me on the bill. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's coming up in a week, and that's really exciting to play outside of. I've also played in Europe with said Sara, but playing outside of just San Francisco, Oakland, and Berkeley is nice. And then I don't have anything booked after that, but I'm as we mentioned before we went live, I'm a high school teacher, and the work is incredibly intensive. So I'm realizing that having the gig that I played last week and having this gig that I'm playing next week, along with the semester just having begun, is a lot. I'm being spread pretty thin, so I think I'll probably take it easy until the first of next year after this San Jose show.
Okay, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
So I appreciate you coming on, man, and hopefully we can get you back on soon. Um, I don't know. We are emailing. I don't know how much you've been using Instagram, but I appreciate it when, people that come on, I can keep tabs and, you let me know
absolutely.
what's going on and you send me your stuff. I like to see that and have you back on. And, because even though I'm an artist myself, I support the artists and I love to see people doing this and, taking it to the next level.
Thank you so much, Fred. It's been a pleasure, and I'll definitely be we'll definitely be keeping track of each
Yeah,
other.
man, hit me anytime. People send me stuff every day on Instagram or whatever, what they're doing. And I check out all my people, man.
All right, all
All
right.
right.
I will absolutely.
See you later.
All right, take care. Thank you
You,
so much.
you too. Bye bye.